Chapter 13, The Buddha, Buddha's Birth and Early Life, Buddhist Text, Buddhist Schisms, and Buddha Nature. Written and produced by Thomas Tyseal. Copyright Thomas Tyseal, unless otherwise noted. About the same time as the Vedic seers were composing the Upanishads, a sublime spiritual teacher arose in India who would become the founder of a new religion. Siddhartha Gautama, or Siddhartha Gautama in Sanskrit, the Buddha, was born to a royal family in the province of Lumbini on the plains at the edge of the Himalayas in Nepal. He was part of the Shakya clan and is frequently called Shakyamuni, the sage of the Shakya. It is still debated when he lived, but 500 BCE is a good middle estimate. That makes him a near contemporary of Mahavir in Jainism, Pythagoras, Lao Tzu, and Confucius. Tradition says Gautama grew up as a prince, protected from the world outside his royal confines. The legends say that Gautama married and was living a happy royal life when, on a chariot ride outside the palace, he encountered poverty and suffering for the first time. The experience affected him so deeply that he left his family to seek answers to the problem of suffering and lived the life of an ascetic until he found enlightenment and became the Buddha, the awakened. Disagreements about what founders of ancient religions taught are inevitable, as there were no written records from these times. While there is some debate as to if it really happened, tradition says that just after the Buddha's death, 500 Buddhist elders gathered at the Sarapani caves in what is now the city of Rajir in the northeast corner of India, about 300 miles or 500 kilometers southeast of Lumbini, where the Buddha was born. This became known as the First Buddhist Council. Relying on the memory of the monks Upali and Ananda, the Buddha's teachings were organized into 3 baskets, Tipitaka in Pali, Tripitaka in Sanskrit. These are 1. The collection of basic teachings, the suttas or sutras in Sanskrit, 2. The rules for monks, the Vinaya, and 3. The commentaries of the basic teachings, the Abhidhamma. According to what is now called the Theraveda tradition, about 100 years after the First Buddhist Council, it became clear that a Second Buddhist Council was needed. It convened in 383 BCE in Vaishali, some 50 miles north of where the First Buddhist Council was held. According to Theravedists, the council drew a distinction between the teachings of the elders and the teachings of the greater congregation. We now refer to these 2 Buddhist congregations as Theraveda and Mahayana. What happened at the Second Council and what each group believed, or was even called at that time, is still debated, as records of formal divisions do not appear until the time of the Emperor of Magadha, Ashoka, who reigned from about 265 to 238 BCE. The Third Buddhist Council was held in 250 BCE in Pataliputra, about 50 miles south of where the Second Council was held. This one formalized the content of the Tipitaka under the Emperor Ashoka, whose son took them to Sri Lanka, where they were eventually written in the Pali language, beginning sometime around 50 BCE. Indian Buddhist monks from different Buddhist schools migrated into China starting around 100 BCE. They carried with them their somewhat varying scriptures, which were translated and adapted to Chinese language and culture. Many of them became the Chinese, or also called Mahayana canon. The Mahayana canon contains the Tipitaka, but also additional text, the most famous being the Lotus Sutra, the Ornament Sutra, Pureland Sutras, the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, and the Nirvana Sutras. The Diamond Sutra, Heart Sutra, and Sutra on the Descent to Lanka are especially important in Chan Buddhism, called Zen Buddhism in Japan. In general, those who only use the Pali Canon, the Theraveda Buddhist, do not accept the authenticity of the added Mahayana scriptures. Vajrayana Buddhism evolved out of Mahayana Buddhism, where it was initially known as the Path of Mantras. The word Vajra refers to an indestructible, powerful, mythical weapon used by Indra, the Hindu god of storms, lightning, and thunder. Thus, Vajrayana is often translated as thunderbolt vehicle or diamond vehicle. As it is the major form of Buddhism in Tibet, it's also called Tibetan Buddhism and is called Tantric Buddhism as it employs tantric practices, soon to be described. Tantric is a derivative of the Sanskrit word tan, meaning to weave or compose, as in an instructional text. Shown here is the Tibetan Buddhist palace of Potala, the one-time home of the Dalai Lamas from 1649 to 1959. The Potala Palace is named after the mythical home of the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, discussed further below. The Tibetan canon, cataloged in the Tohoku catalog, is divided into two broad categories. The translated words, or kangyur, or authoritative words, vakana, contains the words believed to have been spoken by the Buddha. It includes numerous Mahayana texts, including those that repeat what is found in earlier Pali text, as well as unique Mahayana and unique Tibetan text, and 2, the translated treatises, the Tingyur or Shastras, which contain commentaries and Abhidhamma works of both Mahayana and non-Mahayana traditions. Unique Tibetan Buddhist tantric practices includes the use of recited sounds with spiritual power, mantras, hand gestures with specific spiritual meanings, mudras, symbolic images, often in circular and geometric patterns that reveal the structure of the universe, mandalas, special visualization techniques and invocations and special requests to deities, dharanas. Tibetan teachings are usually transmitted by a religious figure, a lama, the Tibetan word for guru. The word bodhisattva means enlightened, bodhi, and being, sattva. To Theraveda Buddhist, Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, is the only bodhisattva, and the term refers to his residence in the Tutsita or Tushita heavens, the heaven where future Buddhas live before they become manifest in this world. It can also refer to the Buddha's past appearances on earth. In Mahayana Buddhism, the bodhisattva concept grew to include anyone who has made a vow and has made progress in becoming fully enlightened, a Buddha, by practicing the 6 perfections, paramitas, generosity, discipline, patience, exertion, meditation, and transcendental knowledge. Its Western counterpart would be close to that of a Christian saint. Bodhisattvas are often regarded as those who have chosen to delay becoming a Buddha so that they can compassionately help others. The most famous bodhisattva in Mahayana Buddhism are the Maitreya, Amitabha, and Avalokiteshvara, shown here and known in Chinese as Guanyin. As noted earlier, hundreds of years passed before the teachings of the Buddha were put in writing. Over time, the 3 major branches of Buddhism split into many different denominations, as shown here. I can't cover all these divisions, so we'll focus mostly on Theraveda text, but we'll include a few notes in the next chapters on a couple of major philosophical schools. We learn about the Buddha and his teachings through a vast scripture that was set to writing hundreds of years after the Buddha's lifetime. The earliest scripture is generally known as the Pali Canon. Pali is an ancient language, and the earliest Buddhist scriptures were recorded in Pali and Sanskrit, another ancient Indian language. The three baskets were first fixed in writing on palm leaves about 100 BCE in Sri Lanka. The content of the Tathagata varied, however, among Buddhist communities or sanghas. The basic teaching basket in Pali, the Sutta Pitaka, contains 5 volumes known collectively as agamas, or sacred scriptures, and individually as nikamas. Sutta means thread, as in thread of discourse, and Nikaya means volume. The 5 Nikayas are the Digha Nikaya, or long discourses, the Majjhima Nikaya, or middle-length discourses, the Samyutta Nikaya, shorter grouped discourses that are arranged by theme, and the Anguttara Nikaya, shorter discourses arranged by the number of items contained within it, and the Khuddaka Nikaya, or miscellaneous text. Altogether, the 3 baskets make up about 50 volumes, as you can see at left. As you know, those who only use the Pali Canon are generally referred to as Theraveda Buddhist. Theraveda means the doctrine of the elders. When citing Buddhist scriptures from the Pali Canon, I'll generally use texts from Sutta Central. We turn now to consider the nature of the Buddha. The nature of the Buddha has been debated in the West. In the East, however, the Buddha has clearly been seen as a divine being who had an auspicious and divine birth, as recorded in the Middle Discourse, MN 123. To Buddhists, the Buddha was God-like, though not God. He was a towering figure with superhuman knowledge and a divine mission to save humanity. In the Long Discourse, DN 11, he claimed to be able to perform miracles, but knowing that those of little faith would claim that he was working a spell on people, he declined, saying, "Seeing this drawback in psychic power, I'm horrified, repelled, and disgusted by demonstrations of psychic power. These feats that have nothing to do with spiritual growth. Hence, they may be produced or perhaps faked by a variety of means." Consider his titles. He's the Awakened One, the Buddha, the One who has come, the Tathagata, the Exalted One, the Bhagava, the Peerless One, the Anumanama, the One who overcomes all, Sabbatibhu, the All-Seeing One, Samatakachaku, the Torchbearer of mankind, the Akutaro Manjusanam, and many other titles. We cannot wear these titles. They do not fit us. The Buddha was a Tathagata, meaning one come with superhuman knowledge. When a bunch of priests, Brahmins, were arguing over which was the straight path that led to salvation, the Buddha asked if any of them had seen Brahma, the creator god, face to face. When they replied no, the Buddha explained that true knowledge of the straight path comes only from a special being. The Buddha explained that from time to time a Tathagata is born into the world, an Arahat, a fully awakened one, abounding in wisdom and goodness, happy with knowledge of the world, unsurpassed as a guide to mortals, willing to be led, a teacher of gods and men, a blessed one, a Buddha. He by himself thoroughly understands and sees, as it were, face to face this universe, including the worlds above with the gods, the Maras, the demons, and the Brahmas, the Devas, and the world below with its samanas or ascetics and brahmins, priests, its princes and peoples, and he then makes his knowledge known to others. The truth doth he proclaim, both in the letter and in the spirit, lovely in its origin, lovely in its progress, lovely in its consummation. The higher life doth he make known in all its purity and in all its perfectedness. The Buddha then exclaimed to his disciple Vasetta, "For Brahma I know, Vasetta, and the world of Brahma, and the path which leadeth unto it. Yea, I know it even as one who has entered the Brahma world, and who has been born within it." Like other divine teachers sent to enlighten us, the Buddha announced, "This is the only path. There is none other for the purification of insight. Those who have sufficient faith in me, sufficient love for me, are all headed for heaven." We cannot say such things. We are not the Buddha. Understanding the Buddha as divine enables us to see the transformative energies he released. While we are not the Buddha, a common Buddhist belief in the Mahayana tradition is that we have Buddha nature within us, and that finding relief from suffering is tied to finding this nature. The Mahayana Nirvana Sutra, aka the Mahaparinirvana Sutra, explains that our true self is in fact nascent Buddha nature, which is called Tathagata Garbha, meaning Tathagata within, or hidden treasury. Beginning in chapter 8 and many times after that, this sutra proclaims that all beings have Buddha nature. The kingdom of heaven, as the Christian Bible states, is within. Beginning in chapter 12, we read that the nature of self within is nothing other than the hidden storehouse of the Tathagata, and that the nature of self within and the Buddha nature do not differ. Note that these refer to pure self, Buddha nature within, not our lower self that wants to own everything. Thus we are, it seems, as the Bible declares, made in the image of the Father, containing a bit of his nature, our true self within us. This is also consistent with what the Upanishads declare. Further, we learn that the void, that is emptiness, is Buddha nature, and that loving kindness is Buddha nature. The void, then, is not empty of spiritual powers. Further, in the Lion's Roar of Queen Srimala Sutra, we learn that Tathagata Garbha is the domain of the Tathagata. It is not the domain of any disciple or self-enlightened one. We do not own the divine within us. We also learn that the Buddha's spiritual body, the Dharmakaya, is the domain of omniscient knowledge, and that if we think of it as having the perfections of permanence, pleasure, self, and purity, we do not go astray. Further, we learn that the Nirvana realm is an expression for the Dharmakaya of the Tathagata. It is the presence of the Tathagata and his energies that is our Nirvana. Christians would call this the experience of the presence of Christ. Here we see the great possibility of union of religions. It's time now to look more closely at Buddha's teachings.